24. Vaisampayana said, thus addressed Bhima, firmly resolved upon slaying Jarasandha, replied unto Krishna of the Yadu race, saying, O tiger of the Yadu race, O Krishna, this wretch that yet stayeth before me with sufficient strength and bent upon fight should not be forgiven by me. Hearing these words of Vrikodara, Bhima, that tiger among men, Krishna, desiring to encourage that hero to accomplish the death of Jarasandha without any delay, answered, O Bhima, exhibit today upon Jarasandha the strength thou hast luckily derived, the might thou hast obtained from thy father, the god Maruta. Thus addressed by Krishna, Bhima, that slayer of foes, holding up in the air the powerful Jarasandha, began to whirl him on high. And O bull of the Bharata race, having so whirled him in the air full 100 times, Bhima pressed his knee against Jarasandha's backbone and broke his body in twain. And having killed him thus, the mighty Vrikodara uttered a terrible roar, and the roar of the Pandava, mingling with that death, knell half. Jarasandha, while he was being broken on Bhima's knee, caused a loud uproar that struck fear into the heart of every creature, and all the citizens of Magadha became dumb with terror, and many women were even prematurely delivered. And hearing those roars, the people of Magadha thought that either the Himavat was tumbling down or the earth itself was being rent asunder, and those oppressors of all foes, then leaving the lifeless body of the king at the palace gate, where he lay as one asleep, went out of the town, and Krishna, causing Jarasandha's car furnished with an excellent flagstaff to be made ready, and making the brothers Bhima and Arjuna ride in it, went in and released his imprisoned relatives, and those kings rescued from terrible fate, rich in the possession of jewels, approaching Krishna, made presents unto him of jewels and gems, and having vanquished his foe, Krishna, furnished with weapons, and unwounded, and accompanied by the kings he had released, came out of Girivraja, riding in that celestial car of Jarasandha, and he also, who would wield the bow with both hands, Arjuna, who was incapable of being vanquished by any of the monarchs on earth, who was exceedingly handsome in person and well skilled in the destruction of the foe, accompanied by the possessor of great strength Bhima, came out of that fort with Krishna, driving the car wherein he rode, and that best of cars, incapable of being vanquished by any king, ridden in by those warriors, Bhima and Arjuna, and driven by Krishna, looked exceedingly handsome. Indeed, it was upon that car that Indra and Vishnu had fought of old in the battle with the Asuras, in which Taraka, the wife of Brihaspati, had become the immediate cause of much slaughter. And riding upon that car, Krishna now came out of the ill fort, possessed of the splendor of heated gold, and decked with rows of jingling bells, and furnished with wheels, whose clatter was like the roar of clouds, and ever victorious in battle, and always slaughtering the foe against whom it was driven. It was that very car riding upon which Indra had slain in 99 Asuras of old, and those bulls among men, the three cousins, having obtained that car, became exceedingly glad. The people of Magadha, beholding the long-armed Krishna, along with the two brothers, seated in that car of Jarasandha, wondered much. O Bharata, that car whereunto were yoked celestial horses, and which possessed the speed of the wind, thus ridden upon by Krishna, looked exceedingly beautiful, and upon that best of course was a flagstaff without being visibly attached thereto, and which was the product of celestial skill, and the handsome flagstaff, possessed of the splendor of the rainbow, could be seen from the distance of a yojana. And Krishna, while coming out, thought of Godura, and Godura, thought of by his master, came thither in no time, like a tree of vast proportions, standing in a village, worshipped by all. Godura, of immense weight of body and living upon snakes, sat upon that excellent car, along with the numberless open-mouthed and frightfully roaring creatures on its flagstaff, and thereupon that best of cars became still more dazzling with its splendor, and was as incapable of being looked at by created beings as the midday sun surrounded by 1,000 rays. And O king, such was that best of flagstaffs of celestial make that it never struck against any tree, nor could any weapon injure it at all, even though visible to men's eyes. And Achyuta, that tiger among men, riding with the two sons of Pandu upon that celestial car, the clatter of those wheels was like the roar of the clouds, came out of Girivraja. The car upon which Krishna rode had been obtained by King Vasu from Vasava, and from Vasu by Vrikodara, and from the later in due course by King Jarasandha, and he of long arms and eyes like lotus petals, and possessed of illustrious reputation, coming out of Girivraja, stopped for some time on a level plain outside the town. And O king, all the citizens then, with the Brahmanas at their head, hastened thither to adore him with due religious rites. And the kings who had been released from confinement worshipped the slayer of Madhu with reverence, and addressing him with eulogies, said, O thou of long arms, thou hast today rescued us, sunk in the deep mire of sorrow in the hand of Jarasandha. Such an act of virtue by thee, O son of Devaki, assisted by the might of Bhima and Arjuna, is most extraordinary. O Vishnu, languishing as we all were in the terrible hill fort of Jarasandha, it was verily from sheer good fortune alone that thou hast rescued us, O son of the Yadu race, and achieved thereby a remarkable reputation. O tiger among men, we bow down to thee. O command us what we shall do, however difficult of accomplishment, thy command being made known to us, O Lord Krishna, it will at once be accomplished by us. Thus addressed by the monarchs, the high-souled Rishikesha gave them every assurance and said, Yudhishthira is desirous of performing the sacrifice of Rajasuya. That monarch, ever guided by virtue, is solicitous of acquiring the imperial dignity. Having known this from me, assist him in these endeavors. Then, O king, all those monarchs with the joyous hearts accepted the words of Krishna, saying, So be it. And saying this, those lords of earth made presents of jewels unto him, of the Dasarhares, and Govinda, moved by kindness towards them, took a portion of those presents. Then the sons of Jarasandha, the high-souled Sahadeva, accompanied by his relatives and the principal officers of state, and with his priest in front, came thither. And the prince, bending himself low and making large presents of jewels and precious stones, worshipped Vasudeva, that god among men. Then that best of men, Krishna, giving every assurance unto the prince afflicted with fear, accepted those presents of great value. And Krishna joyfully installed the prince there, and then in the sovereignty of Magadha, and the strong-armed and illustrious son of Jarasandha, thus installed on the throne by those most exalted of men, and having obtained the friendship of Krishna, and treated with respect and kindness by the two sons of Pritha, re-entered the city of his father, and that bull amongst men, Krishna, accompanied by the sons of Pritha, and graced with great good fortune, left the city of Magadha, laden with numerous jewels, accompanied by the two sons of Pandu. Achyuta, Krishna, arrived at Indraprastha, and approaching Yudhishthira joyfully, addressing that monarch, said, O best of kings, from good fortune, the mighty Jarasandha hath been slain by Bhima, and the kings confined at Girivraja have been all set free. From good fortune also, these two, Bhima and Dhananjaya, are well and arrived, O Bharata, at their own city unwounded. Then Yudhishthira worshipped Krishna as he deserved, and embraced Bhima and Arjuna in joy. And the monarch, who had no enemy, having obtained victory through the agency of his brothers, in consequence of the death of Jarasandha, gave himself up to pleasure and merriment with all his brothers. And the eldest son of Pandu, Yudhishthira, together with his brothers, approached the kings who had come to Indraprastha, and entertaining and worshipping them each according to his age, dismissed them all. Commanded by Yudhishthira, those kings with joyful hearts set out for their respective countries without loss of time, riding upon excellent vehicles. Thus, O king, did that tiger among men, Janardana of great intelligence, caused his foe Jarasandha to be slain through the instrumentality of the Pandavas. And O Bharata, that chastiser of all foes, having thus caused Jarasandha to be slain, took leave of Yudhishthira and Pritha, and Draupadi, and Subhadra, and Bhimasena, and Arjuna, and the twins Nakula and Sahadeva. After taking leave of Dhananjaya also, he set out for his own city of Dwaraka, riding upon that best of cars of celestial make, possessed of the speed of the mind, and given unto him by Yudhishthira, filling the 10 points of the horizon with the deep rattle of its wheels and hobble of the Bharata race. Just as Krishna was on the point of setting out, the Pandavas, with Yudhishthira at their head, walked round that tiger among men, who was never fatigued with exertion. And after the illustrious Krishna, the son of Devaki, had departed from Indraprastha, having acquired that great victory, and having also dispelled the fears of the kings, that feat, O Bharata, swelled the fame of the Pandavas, and O king, the Pandavas passed their days, continuing to gladden the heart of Draupadi. And at that time, whatever was proper and consistent with virtue, pleasure, and profit continued to be properly executed by King Yudhishthira in the exercise of his duties of protecting his subjects. Thus ends the 24th section in the Jarasandha-badha Parva of the Sabha Parva.